quiet kid becomes Bullies' worst nightmare. They had no idea who they were messing with. Ryan Parker stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror of Westlake High School, running his fingers through his disheveled brown hair. At 15, he was shorter than most boys his age, with a softness around his midsection that had earned him the unwanted nickname Pudgy Parker within just 2 weeks of arriving at this new school. His pale blue eyes, his mother always said they were his best feature, looked tired and resigned. Third period hadn't even started, and he already wanted the day to be over. Just blend in, don't make eye contact, get through one more day. Tugged at his oversized hoodie, making sure it covered as much of his frame as possible, and pushed open the bathroom door. The hallway was crowded with students rushing to their next classes, a sea of unfamiliar faces that barely registered his existence. That was fine with Ryan. Invisibility was preferable to the alternative. Westlake High was supposed to be a fresh start. After his father's job transfer had uprooted them from Boston to this mid-sized town in Colorado, Ryan had briefly entertained the hope that things might be different here. Maybe he could reinvent himself, make real friends, escape the torment that had followed him through middle school. That hope had lasted approximately 3 days. He was navigating toward his history class when a shoulder slammed into him from behind, sending his books scattering across the floor. The collision wasn't accidental. It never was. Watch where. "You're standing, Pudgy," came the familiar voice of Derek Summers, the junior who had appointed himself as Ryan's personal tormentor. Derek was everything Ryan wasn't. Tall, muscular, with the confident swagger of someone who had never questioned his place in the social hierarchy. Behind him stood his 2 constant companions, Tyler Rodriguez and Jason Chen, ready to laugh at whatever Derek said or did. Ryan knelt to gather his books, keeping his eyes down. "Don't engage. Don't give them anything." "Oh, look at him scrambling around like a little mouse," Derek said, nudging one of the textbooks further away with his foot just as Ryan reached for it. Tyler and Jason snickered on cue. "I think he likes crawling." "Around on the floor," Tyler added. "Probably reminds him of looking for food under the couch cushions." Another wave of laughter. Ryan felt his cheeks burning but kept his head down, methodically collecting his belongings. He could feel the eyes of other students on him, some curious, some pitying, most simply relieved it wasn't them on the receiving end of Derek's attention. Mrs. Reynolds, the English teacher, walked past, glancing at the scene with a momentary frown before continuing down the hall. Like most of the faculty, she had perfected the art of selective blindness when it came to these interactions. "See you at lunch, Pudgy. Save me a seat. Oh, wait, you sit alone," Derek called out, as the trio finally moved on, high-fiving each other as if they'd accomplished something noteworthy. Ryan exhaled slowly, his hands trembling slightly as he shoved the last book into his backpack. He was late to class now, which meant walking in after everyone was seated, all eyes tracking his entrance. Another small humiliation to add to the growing collection. What Derek and his friends didn't know, what nobody at Westlake High knew, was that back in Boston, Ryan had spent the last 4 years training intensively in Krav Maga. His father, a former military man turned corporate security consultant, had insisted on it after Ryan had come home with a bloody nose in 5th grade. "The world isn't fair," his dad had told him. "You need to be ready for it." Ryan had taken to the Israeli self-defense system with surprising aptitude. His instructor, a stern but encouraging former IDF soldier named Aviv, had even started training him privately, pushing him beyond the regular class curriculum. "You have good instincts," Aviv would say. "You understand that this is not about showing off. It's about ending threats efficiently." But when they moved to Colorado, Ryan and his parents had agreed on a fresh start. No fighting unless absolutely necessary. "Let's try to make friends first," his mother had suggested with her characteristic optimism. "Use your words, not your training." So Ryan had kept his skills hidden, absorbing daily torments without retaliation. Sometimes, in the privacy of his bedroom, he practiced the movements Aviv had taught him, his body remembering what his mind was trying to suppress. But at school, he remained the quiet new kid who flinched at sudden movements and averted his gaze when the popular crowd approached. Lunchtime was always the worst part of the day. The cafeteria at Westlake was a careful ecosystem of social territories. The athletes claimed the center tables with satellite groups of lesser social status radiating outward. Ryan had found a spot at the far corner where he could sit with his back to a wall, minimizing the angles from which he could be approached. Today, he unwrapped the sandwich his mother had packed and took a small bite, keeping his eyes down. He had developed a system for eating quickly, then spending the remainder of the lunch period in the library, where Derek and his friends rarely ventured. "Hey," It's our favorite new punching bag. Ryan's shoulders tensed. Derek's voice was closer than expected, and when he looked up, the trio was already surrounding his table, Tyler and Jason flanking their leader like dutiful lieutenants. Not very talkative today, are we? Derek placed both palms on the table, leaning in. His breath smelled like the pizza served in the cafeteria line. You know, I don't think I've ever heard you say more than 2 words at a time. Are you stupid or just scared? Ryan swallowed his food carefully. Neither, just not interested in talking to you. He regretted the words immediately. The flash of anger in Derek's eyes confirmed that any response was the wrong response. Oh, he's not interested in talking to me, Derek mimicked in a high-pitched voice, looking at his friends. Hear that, guys? Pudgy's too good for us. Jason reached over and grabbed Ryan's chocolate milk, opening it and taking a deliberate sip. Not bad, thanks for the drink. Give it back, Ryan said quietly, the words escaping before he could stop them. Derek's eyebrows shot up in mock surprise. Look who's finding his voice. What are you going to do if we don't, Pudgy? Call your mummy. Ryan felt a familiar sensation building in his chest, a mixture of humiliation and rage that he had become adept at suppressing. His fingers twitched under the table, muscle memory from countless training sessions urging him to act. But he remained still, his face a careful mask. Actually, Derek continued, a new idea visibly forming. I think Pudgy needs to share more than just his milk. What else you got in there? Before Ryan could react, Tyler had grabbed his lunch bag, upending the contents onto the table. Then an apple rolled across the surface, followed by a bag of carrot sticks and a homemade cookie wrapped in plastic. Derek snatched the cookie, examining it with exaggerated interest. Homemade, huh? Your mommy must really love you. He broke the cookie in half, handing part to Jason while taking a bite himself. Not bad. A little dry, though. Something cold and hard settled in Ryan's stomach. That cookie had been made by his grandmother before she passed away last year. His mom had found a stash in the freezer and included one as a surprise. He stared at the crumbs falling from Derek's mouth, feeling something essential shifting inside him. Next time, tell your mom to add more butter, Derek said with his mouth full, brushing crumbs from his shirt onto Ryan's half-eaten sandwich. Ryan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. The cafeteria noise dimmed. Momentarily, as nearby tables glanced over, sensing potential drama, he felt his pulse in his fingertips, his training whispering options, targets, movements, sequences that would end this confrontation in seconds. Not here, not yet. Keep the food, he said, his voice steadier than he expected. Clearly, you need it more than I do. Derek's face darkened, but before he could respond, Ryan had grabbed his backpack and was walking away, ignoring the chorus of oohs that had erupted from those close enough to hear the exchange. It wasn't much of a comeback, but it was more resistance than he had shown before, and they all knew it. The remainder of the school day passed in a blur of anxious anticipation. Ryan kept expecting Derek to reappear, to escalate the confrontation, but there was no sign of him or his friends. By the final bell, Ryan was almost convinced he had escaped further trouble for the day. That illusion shattered as he approached his locker. Derek, Tyler, and Jason were waiting, along with 2 older students Ryan didn't recognize. 5 against 1. The hallway was emptying quickly as students rushed to catch buses or head to after-school activities. No witnesses meant no restraint. There he is, Derek said, his voice carrying an edge that hadn't been there before. The little smartass who thinks he can disrespect me in front of everyone. Ryan assessed the situation with a clarity that would have made Aviv proud. 5 opponents. Narrow hallway, locker at his back, limited escape routes, no teachers visible. Worst-case scenario by most measures. I just want to get my books and go home, Ryan said, attempting reasonableness one last time. That's not how this works, Pudgy, Derek replied, stepping closer. See, you made me look bad at lunch. Now, I need to remind you and everyone else who's in charge here. Tyler moved to Ryan's left, cutting off that escape route. Nobody's coming to save you, new kid. Ryan felt a strange calm descending. 4 years of training, hundreds of hours of practice, all for situations exactly like this one. His father's voice echoed in his head. You never start a fight, but you always finish it. I'm going to give you one chance, Ryan said, his voice quiet but firm. Let me pass and we'll forget this happened. Derek's laugh was genuine, as if Ryan had delivered the punchline to a hilarious joke. Did you hear that, guys? Pudgy's giving us a chance. He wiped an imaginary tear from his eye. That's a good one. I'm serious, Ryan insisted, settling his weight evenly on both feet, just as Aviv had taught him, center of gravity low, balanced, ready. So am I, Derek said, his amusement vanishing. He lunged forward, grabbing the front of Ryan's hoodie with both hands and slamming him against the locker. "Time to learn your place, new kid." What happened next would later be described by witnesses in conflicting ways, but all accounts agreed. On one thing, it was over shockingly quickly. As Derek shoved him, Ryan's training took over. He brought both arms up between Derek's, breaking the grip on his hoodie with a swift outward movement. Before Derek could react, Ryan's palm struck upward, connecting with his opponent's nose, not hard enough to break, but sufficient to produce an immediate gush of blood and tears. Derek stumbled backward, hands flying to his face. "What the fu—" Tyler charged in from the side, but Ryan was already moving, stepping into the attack rather than away from it. He redirected Tyler's momentum, adding a sweep that sent the larger boy sprawling to the floor with a heavy thud. Jason hesitated, clearly reassessing the situation, but one of the older boys decided to act, throwing a wild haymaker that Ryan easily ducked. The punch connected with nothing but air, leaving the attacker off balance and vulnerable. Ryan delivered 2 quick strikes to the boy's solar plexus, followed by a leg sweep that deposited him next to Tyler on the hallway floor. The entire exchange had taken less than 10 seconds. Derek was still trying to stem the blood flowing from his nose, while Tyler and the unnamed older student were struggling to get up. Jason and the remaining attacker backed away, hands raised in a universal gesture of surrender. "What the hell are you?" Jason stammered, eyes wide with disbelief. Ryan stood in a neutral position, breathing controlled, his face composed despite the adrenaline surging through his system. "I told you I just wanted to get my books." By now, the commotion had drawn attention. A small crowd of lingering students had gathered at a safe distance, phones raised to capture the aftermath. Among them was Mia Chen, a quiet girl from Ryan's math class and, he now realized, possibly Jason's sister or cousin based on their similar features. Ms. Patel, the vice principal, pushed through the gathering crowd, her face transitioning from annoyed to shocked as she took in the scene. 3 students on the ground, 1 bleeding, and Ryan Parker, the new student who barely spoke, standing calmly in the center of the chaos. "What is going on here?" she demanded, her gaze settling accusingly on Ryan. "He attacked us," Derek managed through his bloody nose, pointing at Ryan. "Came at us out of nowhere. 5-on-1, and he still snapped." Miss Patel looked skeptical, turning to Ryan for his version. "Mr. Parker." Ryan glanced around at the stunned faces, the phones still recording, the mixture of fear and newfound respect in the eyes of his peers. He had promised his parents to stay out of trouble, to give this new school a fair chance. That promise seemed very distant now. "They were waiting for me," he said simply. "They attacked first. I defended myself." "He's some kind of ninja freak," Tyler added from his position on the floor, wincing as he tried to stand. "Did you see what he did?" The crowd began murmuring, the story already morphing as it spread from person to person. Ryan caught fragments, took down 5 guys, moved like water. "Secret martial arts master, all of you, to my office. Now," Ms. Patel ordered, pointing at Ryan and the 5 other boys. "The rest of you go home unless you want detention." As Ryan followed Ms. Patel down the hall, he noticed the way other students moved aside, their expressions a mixture of awe and wariness. The invisibility he had cultivated was gone forever. For better or worse, everyone at Westlake High would know his name by tomorrow morning. The meeting in the vice principal's office lasted over an hour. Despite Derek and his friends' attempts to paint Ryan as the aggressor, the story unraveled under questioning. 2 students who had witnessed the beginning of the confrontation confirmed that Derek's group had been lying in wait, and that Ryan had tried to defuse the situation verbally before defending himself. Ms. Patel, while clearly not pleased with the violence, seemed to understand the reality of the situation. "Fighting is never the answer," she told Ryan sternly, "but neither is allowing yourself to be bullied. We have a zero-tolerance policy for both." In the end, all 6 boys received 3 days of after-school detention, a compromise that satisfied no one but avoided more severe consequences. Ryan's parents would be called, as would those of the other boys involved. As Ryan finally left the administration building, the sun was setting over the mountains, visible beyond the football field. The campus was nearly deserted, but a figure sat waiting on a bench near the parking lot. It was Mia Chen, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, a book open on her lap, though she didn't seem to be reading it. She looked up as Ryan approached, closing her book. "I told Jason to leave you alone weeks ago," she said without preamble. "He never listens to me." Ryan stopped, uncertain. "You're Jason's cousin," she supplied. "Unfortunately, our moms are sisters." She stood, gathering her backpack. What you did back there was impressive. Where did you learn to fight like that? Ryan hesitated, then shrugged. My dad thought it would be good for me to know how to defend myself. Your dad was right. Mia fell into step beside him as they walked toward the street. Derek and his friends have been terrorizing people for years. The teachers pretend not to notice, and most kids are too scared to stand up to them. She gave him a sidelong glance. But you're not scared of them. Everyone's scared of something, Ryan replied. I just decided I was more tired of being pushed around than I was scared of fighting back. They reached the corner where they would need to head in separate directions. Mia paused, turning to face him directly. You know everything's going to be different tomorrow, right? People are already talking. By morning, you'll have taken down 10 guys with one hand tied behind your back. A small smile tugged at Ryan's lips. Sounds exhausting. I'm serious, she insisted. You won't be invisible anymore. That comes with its own problems. I guess I'll find out. Ryan shifted his backpack to his other shoulder. I should get home. My parents are probably getting a call from Ms. Patel right about now. Mia nodded, taking a step backward. See you tomorrow, Ryan Parker. Try not to beat up any more of my relatives, okay? Family dinners are awkward enough already. Ryan walked the remaining blocks to his house. He felt oddly lighter despite the trouble waiting at home. He had spent so long hiding who he was, what he could do, that the relief of finally standing his ground outweighed the consequences he would face. His prediction about his parents proved accurate. His mother met him at the door, her expression a mixture of concern and disappointment. Ms. Patel called. She said you were in a fight with 5 other boys. It wasn't exactly a fight, Ryan tried to explain, following her into the kitchen where his father sat at the table, his face unreadable. She said one boy had a bloody nose, and 2 others were on the ground. His mother continued. That sounds like a fight to me. His father finally spoke. Did you start it? No, sir, Ryan answered immediately. They were waiting for me at my locker, 5 of them. They'd been pushing me around for weeks, and today they decided to escalate. His father nodded slowly. And did you try to walk away? I tried to talk my way out first. When that didn't work, I defended myself. Ryan met his father's gaze steadily. Just like you and Aviv taught me. Something shifted in his father's expression. A flicker of pride quickly suppressed. We agreed you'd give this school a chance. Try to fit in without resorting to what you learned in Boston. I did try. For 2 weeks I let them push me around, call me names, take my food. Ryan's voice remained even, but his hands clenched at his sides. Today, they weren't going to stop at that. If I hadn't defended myself, I'd be in the emergency room instead of standing here. His parents exchanged a look that contained an entire conversation. Finally, his mother sighed. You're still getting detention, she said, and you're grounded this weekend. Violence isn't the solution, Ryan, even when it feels justified. But, his father added, we're proud that you showed restraint for as long as you did, and that you defended yourself without seriously hurting anyone. Aviv taught you well. Does this mean I can start training again? Ryan asked, hope creeping into his voice. The absence of his regular practice sessions had left a void that homework and video games couldn't fill. Another silent exchange between his parents. We'll look into local dojos this weekend, his father conceded. But training is a privilege, not a right. Your behavior at school and your grades will determine whether you continue. It was as much as Ryan could have hoped for, given the circumstances. He nodded his agreement and headed upstairs to start on his homework, his mind already replaying the day's events, analyzing what he could have done differently, better. The next morning, Ryan approached Westlake High with a mixture of dread and curiosity. Would he be summoned to the principal's office? Would Derek and his friends be waiting to exact revenge, perhaps with reinforcements? Or would yesterday's demonstration have changed the dynamic entirely? The answer came immediately. As he walked through the main entrance, conversations paused. Heads turned and whispers followed in his wake. Gone was the invisibility he had cultivated. In its place was a notoriety that felt equally uncomfortable. There he is, someone hissed as he passed. The new kid who destroyed Derek's crew? I heard he's got a black belt in 3 different martial arts, another voice added. My cousin said he used to compete professionally in Boston. The rumors were already outpacing reality, just as Mia had predicted. Ryan kept his eyes forward, his pace steady, ignoring the attention as best he could. He reached his locker without incident, half expecting to find Derek waiting, but the hallway was mercifully free of his tormentors. As he was gathering books for his first class, a shadow fell across his locker door. Ryan tensed automatically, then relaxed when he saw it was just Connor Lewis, a lanky basketball player who sat behind him in algebra. Hey man, Connor greeted him with a newfound respect, that would have been comical under different circumstances. That was intense yesterday. Where'd you learn to fight like that? Just some self-defense classes back home, Ryan replied, deliberately downplaying his years of training. Well, it was badass, Connor said with genuine admiration. Derek's had it coming for years. Nobody's ever stood up to him like that. Ryan closed his locker, uncertain how to respond to this unexpected praise. It wasn't personal. I just wanted to be left alone. Yeah, well, mission accomplished, I'd say. Derek's got a seriously bruised ego to go with his bruised face. The whole school's talking about it. That much was evident as Ryan made his way through the morning. In each class, he felt eyes following him, heard his name in hushed conversations that abruptly stopped when he approached. Some of the attention was admiring, some wary, but all of it was a stark contrast to the invisibility of just 24 hours earlier. By lunchtime, Ryan had grown tired of the scrutiny. He grabbed his food and headed for his usual isolated corner table, hoping for a few minutes of relative peace. To his surprise, the table wasn't empty. Mia Chen sat there, along with two other students Ryan recognized from his classes but had never spoken to. Zach, a tall black student who played in the school band, and Lily, a quiet girl with dyed blue hair who always had her nose in a fantasy novel. We saved you a seat, Mia said, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. Figured you might want some company that isn't just gawking at you like you're a zoo exhibit. Ryan hesitated, then sat down, placing his lunch tray on the table with care. Thanks. So, Zach began, leaning forward with undisguised curiosity. So I've got to ask, how much of what people are saying is true? Did you really put 5 guys in the hospital? Ryan nearly choked on his first bite of sandwich. What? No, nobody went to the hospital. Derek got a bloody nose and a couple of them fell down, that's it. See, I told you the stories were exaggerated, Lily said to Zach, not looking up from her book. By next week, they'll be saying he's secretly a ninja assassin. The point is, Mia interjected, you showed that Derek and his crew aren't untouchable. That's a big deal around here. I wasn't trying to make a statement, Ryan insisted. I just wanted them to leave me alone. Sometimes that's statement enough, Lily murmured, briefly glancing up from her novel with surprising insight. Standing up for yourself when everyone expects you to take it, that's revolutionary in a place like this. Zach nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. It's like in Remember the Titans. Sometimes one person has to take a stand before others find their courage. Ryan looked at the three of them. These unexpected allies who had appeared in the aftermath of yesterday's confrontation. They weren't offering friendship based on fear or admiration of his fighting skills. They seemed to appreciate what the act represented more than the act itself. For the first time since arriving at Westlake, Ryan felt something like belonging begin to take root. The conversation flowed surprisingly easily after that, touching on classes, teachers, music, and books. Normal teenage topics that had nothing to do with fighting or bullies. It was refreshingly ordinary. The peace lasted until the end of the lunch period, when a hush fell over the nearby tables. Ryan looked up to see Derek entering the cafeteria, his nose sporting a white bandage that stood out starkly against his face. Tyler and Jason flanked him as usual, but their typical swagger had been replaced by a wary vigilance as they scanned the room. Derek's gaze locked onto Ryan, his expression darkening. For a moment, tension crackled in the air between them. Then, to Ryan's surprise, Derek gave a curt nod, not friendly but acknowledging, before turning away to find a table on the opposite side of the cafeteria. Did you see that? Zach whispered, incredulous. Derek Summers just backed down. In public. He's not stupid, Mia observed. He knows he can't win in a fair fight. And after yesterday, he knows the teachers are watching him. Lily closed her book, giving the situation her full attention. So it's not over, though. Guys like Derek don't let go of grudges easily. He'll find other ways to regain his status. Maybe, Ryan agreed, watching as Derek and his friends settled at a distant table, conspicuously avoiding looking in his direction. But if he does, he'll think twice about making it physical again. The rest of the week unfolded in a similar pattern. Ryan attended his detention sessions alongside Derek and the others, each carefully ignoring the presence of the others under Ms. Patel's watchful eye. In the hallways, a delicate truce held. Derek's crew gave Ryan a wide berth, while the rest of the student body gradually adjusted to the new social dynamics. Ryan found himself with something he hadn't expected. Friends. Mia, Zach, and Lily invited him to join their study group, which often evolved into discussions about everything from movies to philosophy. They were outcasts in their own ways. Mia too academically focused for most cliques, Zach torn between his athletic build and artistic interests, Lily deliberately cultivating her outsider status. With them, Ryan felt no pressure to be anything other than himself. On Friday afternoon, as they were leaving their final detention session, Derek surprised Ryan by hanging back until they were the last two in the room. "Parker," he said, his voice gruff but without its usual hostility. "Got a minute?" Ryan tensed automatically but nodded, keeping a careful distance between them. "What is it?" Derek looked uncomfortable, glancing at the door to ensure Miss Patel wasn't within earshot. "What you did on Monday, where did you learn that?" The question wasn't what Ryan had expected. "Krav Maga. It's an Israeli self-defense system. It's effective." Derek touched his nose gingerly, the bruising now a yellowish purple beneath the smaller bandage. "Nobody's ever taken me down like that, not even close." Ryan waited, unsure where this conversation was heading. Derek seemed to be struggling with something, pride warring with curiosity. Do they teach that around here?" Derek finally asked, the words coming out in a rush. Understanding dawned. "My dad's looking into local dojos this weekend. I could let you know what he finds out." Derek nodded, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "That'd be cool. Not that we're friends or anything," he added quickly. "I still think you're a weird loner who got lucky. And I still think you're an insecure bully," Ryan replied evenly. "But I'm willing to call a truce if you are." A reluctant smile tugged at Derek's lips. "Yeah, all right, truce." He extended his hand after a moment's hesitation. Ryan shook it briefly, sensing this wasn't friendship but something else, a recognition between opponents perhaps, or the first tentative step toward mutual respect. As Derek walked away, Ryan remained in the empty classroom, contemplating how much had changed in a single week. He had arrived at Westlake High hoping for invisibility, for a chance to blend in and be left alone. Instead, he had found something more valuable, the courage to be himself, unapologetically, visibly. His phone buzzed with a text from Mia. "Movie night at my place. Zach and Lily already said yes, you in?" Ryan smiled, typing his reply. "Definitely in." Outside, the late afternoon sun painted the mountains in shades of amber and gold. Ryan Parker, no longer the invisible new kid, no longer pudgy, but simply himself, walked toward the waiting world, steps light and head high. Whatever challenges tomorrow brought, he would face them standing tall.